This is Scandinavia, not to be confused with the Nordic region, to which the two are not interchangeable. Scandinavia refers to the countries of Denmark, Sweden and Norway, whereas the Nordics would also include Iceland and Finland. But what about the Faroe Islands and Greenland, which are part of the Danish kingdom but found outside of this region? Are they classed as Scandinavian or Nordic? Well, with Scandinavia being a geographical region, which as just mentioned is here, Greenland and the Faroe Islands are not classed as Scandi, as they are quite simply found outside of this region. Greenland and the Faroe Islands are more generally accepted to be Nordic, although in saying that, Greenland is quite distinct from the other countries. Its identity is more rooted in its Inuit heritage. Greenlandic is also not a Norse language, unlike say Icelandic or Swedish. So what if Scandinavia united to become one country? How would it compare to the rest of the countries on the continent and across the world? Let's find out. So let's go ahead and merge the three countries of Denmark, Sweden and Norway together, and give them the very creative name of Scandinavia. In this video, we're going to exclude Greenland and the Faroe Islands as we spoke about earlier and just stick to mainland Scandinavia. So together they have now formed a country that covers an area of around 880,000 kilometers squared. This makes them the second largest country on the continent, overtaking Ukraine but still falling very short of Russia, whose European part is still some 4.5 times larger. So Scandinavia ranks 34th in the world, ever so slightly smaller than Pakistan but around 60,000 kilometers squared larger than Namibia. The country has a population of around 22 million, which ranks them as the 9th most populous in Europe and around the 60th most populated in the world. A similar population to that of Sri Lanka. So with around 22 million people living in an area of around 880,000 kilometers squared, this gives us a population density of around 25 people per kilometers squared, making it a very sparsely populated region, ranking them around 155th in the world for all countries, similar to the density as what can be found in Brazil or Vanuatu. But just for a bit of fun, if we were to include Greenland, then this density would drop to 0.67 people per kilometers squared, making it the most sparsely populated country on Earth. By metro area, the three most populated cities in our new country would be the three capitals of the three countries which merge together, being Stockholm, Copenhagen and Oslo at 2.4, 2.1 and 1.6 million respectively. Now, speaking of capital cities, which city do you think would make the best capital for Scandinavia? So there's maybe only a couple or a few candidates, probably the three just mentioned. Oslo could be a good pick as it's found in a kind of central location for the entire region. However, with Stockholm already being a major political, economic and cultural hub with good infrastructure and international connections, as well as it being the most populated, it could also make a case for being the best suited capital. Swedish would also be the most spoken language in the country, so Stockholm would make sense. Staying on the topic of language, what would be the official language spoken in the country? Well, there's a few different options, with Swedish being the most spoken in the country that could become the country's official language. Or they could keep it as it is, with different languages being spoken in their respective regions. Or perhaps over time a blend of Norwegian, Danish and Swedish could result in the countries merging their languages together. Or maybe they could even adopt English. English is already spoken at a very high standard across the region. It is used in business and international relations. Okay, maybe it mightn't become the official language as the Scandi people wouldn't want to lose their identity, but definitely a second language to which it pretty much already is. In the English proficiency ranking, Denmark, Norway and Sweden ranked 4th, 5th and 6th in the world respectively. So how strong would the economy of Scandinavia be? Let's take a look. So at the time of making this video, Scandinavia has a GDP of around 1.5 trillion US dollars, a very impressive economy size. This would rank the country as having the 16th largest economy on Earth, larger than Indonesia, a country whose population is nearly 13 times greater. So let's split this 1.5 trillion US dollars across the 22 or so million people who live in this country. This gives a GDP per capita of around 68,000 US dollars. According to the IMF, this would rank the Scandis as around the 9th richest people on Earth by this measure, which coincidentally is where Denmark ranks today. Norway actually ranks 4th with 94,000 US dollars, meaning the average Norwegian has technically become poorer in this index. However, the Swedes have become around 10,000 US dollars richer. Now, what's interesting about these three countries is that they all have their own currency, which to people outside of Europe sounds normal. However, with 20 countries on the continent using the euro, these three are not part of that group. If the three countries merge together, they may adopt the euro, or perhaps Sweden's currency as they have the strongest economy. It's also worth noting that Norway is not part of the EU, so by merging to form Scandinavia, its people would likely be forced into joining the Union. Or perhaps a referendum might take place to which the people of Scandinavia may vote against. One alliance that all three countries are currently part of is NATO, to which Sweden joined in 2024, meaning Scandinavia would likely continue its participation within the alliance. So one thing that this region is known for is its very high living standards. It's likely that in most quality of life indexes, Scandinavia would rank within the top 10, 5 or even in first place. For example, in the Least Corrupt Countries Index, together they'd score 85.5, which would rank them as the second highest in the world, only behind their Nordic brother, Finland. In the Human Development Index, the country would actually rank 3rd with a score of 0.957, incrementally lower than Switzerland and Iceland. The country would actually rank 1st in the world for press freedom, in the top 3 for the least fragile states, the top 5 for the world's happiest countries, and within the top 5 in the Good Country Index, which effectively measures how good a country is on behalf of the planet and human race. So what would the flag of Scandinavia look like? Well, lucky for us, the three flags are very similar as it is, so combining them would be pretty straightforward. So Norway's flag is pretty much Denmark's, but with blue lines added. So let's keep Norway's flag and throw in the yellow lines of Sweden, giving us a pretty fair representation of the three. And maybe just to spicing things up, let's throw a little Viking boat onto the flag. There we go, perfect. Geographically speaking, one ranking where Scandinavia would wipe the floor with the rest of the world is in the number of islands that it has. So currently Sweden and Norway rank 1st and 2nd respectively. Combine them together alongside Denmark and they'd have a total of around 507,000 islands. And with some sources suggesting that there are around 900,000 to 1 million islands on Earth, this would mean around half of all islands will be found in this one country alone. Nuts. At 2,469 meters, Gald Hop again would be the highest point in the country. This mountain is found in the Jotunheimen Mountains in current-day Norway. Now, this is a slight improvement for Sweden, as its highest point is only around 300 meters shorter, whereas Denmark sees a significant increase in its highest point. So current-day Denmark's highest point is only 171 meters. The country is very flat. In fact, the country's average elevation is just 34 meters, the 8th lowest on Earth. Scandinavia as a whole now has an average of 271 meters. That's pretty much a third of the average elevation of land on Earth. So there we have it, that's what the country of Scandinavia would look like if the three countries were to merge together. Could this new country be described as the best on Earth? Let us know your thoughts below. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and as always, thank you very much for watching.